everyone, welcome to the channel for a new video. So like I did a couple of days ago for Ogre Khan, since I'm doing, or I was, how should I say, yeah, I got the task to review Ogre Khan, Infernal Dwarves, Beastard and Vampire Covenant in French, but not in English. It's already covered by PTG. Then I thought I could, as I did for Ogre Khan, do something a bit deeper in terms of what are my expectations after this update. What am I anticipating for the upcoming year? Obviously, this is very at the moment hothead thought. I didn't think long about this, but I wanted to share with you what are my expectations, what do I think about the update. But maybe if you want first to see the changes, you could go watch my video, which was done in French. I believe I've been receiving a couple of feedbacks that AI is providing a live transcription in English. So that should work. I know that YouTube is kind of testing this function, so I'm not sure it's like accessible for anybody, but it seems to work. So somehow you should be able to get it in English as well, translated by AI, which is not the same English as I'm speaking right now, but at least you can get it. And at least you see the points there, the point change. Here the main thing, I will be taking some analysis that I did during this video in French and as well go a bit deeper and share with you, first of all, what are my conclusions after the update, and after that a couple of also thought process regarding list building. I didn't build here any particular list because I haven't one yet, but I have plenty of idea and I wanted to share with you what might be the things that I would consider since the update, basically. First of all, regarding nerfs and also taking into account Season Pack 2, I think they are two different things. First of all, the nerfs, as you knew, the idea of, or the mission that the book or the design team received was to nerf basically the star list of army books. And in the case of Infernal Dwarves, it was pretty easy to spot it. It was more or less the Immortal gunline, I would call it, because it's based around Immortal and it's based around a lot of shooting and range damage. So typically it was a gunline. As you saw, it worked quite well for me, but maybe it's not the most enjoyable gameplay for everybody. So I get that, and it has to be nerfed to be brought more, to be more balanced. But apart from that, from the fact that this list was maybe annoying or too strong, we also had the Season Pack 2, which I think alone was already a good reason to try to make this list evolve towards something different. The fact that we got the nerfs so heavily on Immortal, plus 30 points, and the Spear, and the Gunnery Team, and so on, makes it unplayable. So I think this star list is dead, obviously, and you will need to get rid of a lot of things to play it again. But I think also taking into account Season Pack 2, it's not viable anymore due to the lack of what I've been calling dynamic scoring unit. What do I mean by that? Scoring unit that have enough mobility, also are a bit independent, to be able to operate on flanks and be able to move forward and take board control. So I think Immortal are definitely not a dynamic scoring unit. They are a very resilient one. They could be the core of your battle line, but they are not at all dynamic scoring. So I think that was the two things that make me say this type of list or this playstyle, Immortal Godline, should not be seen anymore after the update. So I think here, in the terms of nerfing the star list of 2025, this has been achieved. Then, overall, I would say that the playstyle shooting, so pure Godline and really waiting for the opponent and just shoot around a lot of shooting. We had, in most lists, you saw my ETC list, I had 4 War Machine plus a Master Pyro plus some shooting also in the rest of the list. So definitely a lot of shooting, almost maxing it. I think we are going to move towards more balanced approach. First of all, due to the update, but also due to the new season pack. So I think we should be moving towards more close combat and a more balanced approach when we think about the shooting. We could obviously still have the blunderbuss, we could have Gunnery Team are still definitely viable options. We have also Infernal Artillery, which is decent. but we could have something more balanced. I would expect a bit less of those war machine and shooting overall. Another thought, now a bit more open precisely on the update, is the tank back? I think it's a first question I would like to put on the table, so to say. It received a small discount, which I think is not the main reason to consider him back. We saw some list, also the star list of 2025. We saw some version of list which did feature the tank, the Infernal engine. So I think it was already on the way. The small discount is obviously an help, but I think the major change could be meta and overall the reducing the tools that had a very easy way to get rid of the engine. And here I'm thinking about evocation and alchemy, the fact that you lost both small blasts, so to say, the small missiles, has been replaced by something different which is not effective on the tank, which makes evocation and alchemy overall less scary, less a problem for the tank. Because when you were facing alchemy with Infernal engine, you knew that basically you are going to lose 2-3 wounds each turn, and you are most likely going to die turn 4, 5 or 6. So that was something that was waiting to happen, because each turn your opponent was going to do the small one, the big one, and you're going to suffer wounds from that. So obviously that was an issue, and I think this change in those two paths already are a good boost to the tank, an indirect boost to the tank, because it's some tools that disappeared that had a good way to get rid of the tank. So I think that alone could be an argument why I expect the Infernal engine to be more and more in the list, which I think is a good news, because it's an emblematic, iconic piece of the army book. And as you know, I think the main expectation for me regarding internal balance was obviously the size 3 to 5 to come back. And also short translation regarding, I hope you like the miniature. It was directly taken from the review I did in French, and since I deleted, since I couldn't change it to English, but basically what it says is the unit size 3 to 5 are coming out of the fridge. So a little play with the words, and I hope also you like the picture of my own fridge and you like the way it's displayed. Anyway, had a bit of fun doing those miniatures. So basically, my expectation and my hope was also that those kind of units, size 3 to 5, would be back. And I think here the tank, we have some arguments, we have some reasons to put him back on the table, and I like that a lot, obviously. Magic. I'm not sure the Lone Master might be the only / the main option for the magic. I think we could have better all-around effective magic. We will obviously still consider the master. I think we have good lore. Alchemy, pyro are still quite good. Occultist could be an option as well, especially for more mobile casters. So I think we have great option for master. But for the price, we might also have Lamassu plus Conjurer, which is very effective. You have Lamassu for 290, you have a Conjurer for 230. So for a bit more than 500, you have very decent setup with 3 channels, some good spell, in range damage and in close combat. So that would be definitely something I would have a look at and I will be trying out. And I think since we have some improvement on the size 3, 4 or 5 unit, we have some reason to bring the Lamassu back on the table, who has obviously great spells. Great Bull, nice discount but still hard to field. Same for the Bastion. I think those two might be meta-wise hard to field, in the sense of still being threatened by magic, still be threatened by range damage, thinking War Machine here. I'm not sure that might be enough. When we think about the Great Bull, we might want, if you look at some combo, for a cheaper price you can get a mage on a small bull, which you can hide, and you can get a Lamassu, which brings you a better magical setup, 2 separate models that you can hide behind, for example, Toric Anointed. Seems to me much more playable than the Great Bull, which I'm obviously sad to say that and to admit that, because I love the Great Bull. It's absolutely a model that I like a lot, and also what it provides to the table. I love the play style of it, and I haven't played one since a while, but I'm still struggling to see it being viable on a competitive level, basically, which is disappointing, but that's how it is. To be honest, I would have liked a little help in terms of design. As you probably know, a couple of months ago, the dragon received an additional attack, and I didn't really understand why the Great Bull not. Could have been a reason to give him an additional one to augment a little bit his eliteness and maybe make it a bit better and more attractive. That could have been a reason. Now it's cheaper in price, so we move a bit back. It's a difficult to price entry. It has been moved up and down, and it's very meta dependent and how the other army behave, what they bring to the table. So if you have a big nerfs on War Machine, you could think, okay, now I'm going to bring it. It depends a lot what are the people playing. The Bastion is a hard case. I didn't see I'm making here an assumption based on what I saw from the design change, but it's obviously a change log type of things. I didn't see the final version of the book, but my expectation is now it's better in combat due to the crew having flintlock or great weapon. So it's better in combat, but the design remains the same. It received a good discount, but the design remained the same, which means you're still very sensitive to the shooting, especially War Machine, because of the high 5, so +1 to hit and so on. You can easily get killed from range damage, and we will not like that very much. So I think we still have the same issue for the Bastion. And do you want to pay those points with the risk of being easily killed from range damage? I'm not so sure. Again, it will also depend how the meta evolves. But yeah, I'm not so sure it's going to be easy to field on a competitive level. Overlord, unlikely comeback. I think here we have a lack of purpose, basically. I've been mentioning Tauric Ritual. I think the design is really bad, and it's not a question of price. You see, we have come down from. I would be curious to still have in mind what kind of price it had at the beginning. I would say it was not so far away from 100 points, and now we have come down to like 10 points or something like that. I think it's really cheap. If I recall correctly, we are down to a cheap price. At least we like divided in half or third. I mean, it has come down a lot. But I think the problem is the price, not the price, is the design, because basically Tauric Ritual doesn't give you any additional armor points, so it just gives you extra mobility. But in exchange for that, you need to be able to field it. You need to find a new unit for him. You need to find a place where to put it. He still has only 3 wounds, so he can easily die and so on. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not so attractive. I would have liked to see him again. And we lack a clear purpose for our Overlord, meaning we already have a very good leadership discipline. So there are, at the moment, not enough reason to field the Overlord. While I see the idea behind the design of Key to the Citadel, I think the problem is it's still a very heavy price tag for the Overlord to carry, because it's a nice boost, but it forces you to take 2 weapons, and it costs a lot, so you cannot really come out with a cheap Overlord. I don't really see him coming back to the list this year, to be honest, because of the lack of purpose. Obviously, the one on Great Bull comes with a cheaper price, so you could feel the 650 something killy flying character, which could be nice, but don't you have better for the price? Maybe yes, we will see. Other than that, Overlord on foot, I never saw really a purpose for him in our list, to be honest. So I don't think so. And Tauric Ritual as well, I mentioned it before. A small bull is just too expensive for the resilience you have, since we have been capped at 3+ armor save. This has been a huge issue when we saw him everywhere, and I like a lot playing that model. He had a 2-up and the Luger dice plus the Lucky Charm. Since then, the Lucky Charm doesn't exist anymore, and even with the Luger dice, I mean a 3-up armor save, you're going to die quickly. So I think the 3-up armor save has been an issue. I would have expected it to come down in price, and it didn't. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing. To make it more playable, I think the design is not a huge problem, but it should have been cheaper, basically, to encourage us to field him for a cheaper price and accept that it's not so resilient as before, but at least it's cheaper. Anointed and Incarnate will surely be back as a hammer. I think that's a huge positive in this version of the book. is the rebalancing of the special category, so to say. And we have cheaper anointed, which are dynamic scoring, and we have also a redesign incarnate, which fulfill now a clearer purpose, we could say. And they are definitely decent as a hammer for the price. Also, the price has been cheaper, so yeah, I think we can expect them to be back. At least I will be trying them out. And we have then Kadim Titan, which face another year in the fridge. In my opinion, I think 20-point discount is not enough for a unit that was nowhere to be seen all year long. The shooty and the combat version. When I saw that some other monster receive a 40-point decrease, that was more or less, I would have said, the streamlined buff. All book around was more or less those minus 40 points on the monster that we didn't see at all year long. That was the norm, and in that case we only receive minus 20, and I think it faces another year in the fridge if it doesn't receive any additional discount. Keep in mind, this is the first version of this update. We could see another round of increase depending on the unit, so I would hope here to receive an additional decrease to make us considering it, but I think it has multiple issues. Obviously pressed by the ranks and then the price. So yeah, I think it's just too expensive for what it does. And finally, Oil Flask. I'm not sure I got the design right, but from the page I received, my conclusion would be that Oil Flask works all the time, which would be back to the older design, which first of all I like, because in terms of version 3.0 making things easier to understand and also quicker to play, I think it's much better, because when you had to track down, did I use here Oil Flask, I didn't use it, and so on. Basically it didn't change that much. I don't think it was that powerful to limit it, but it makes it more complicated, and yeah, you have to think about it before, so it takes time. So if it's the way I think it is, which we will only know when the book is released, if it's all the time, I think it's a great buff for vassal levies, which were present in the star list at the beginning of the year, but started to disappear towards ETC and especially after ETC. So that would be a good buff. I want now to bring towards you a couple of list building ideas. So first of all, I want to highlight, I brought back a concept that I talk about already on the channel, which is basically this balance of list towards more range damage or towards more combat. And this like healthy balance you need to get depending to be competitive. Basically, you have this sweet spot to be competitive, and basically range damage would be you rely on range damage to make difference and to win the game, and combat would be you rely on combat to make the difference and win the game. Which basically we could put on the far right like I don't know, like a beast herd, and on the far left maybe more like Sylvan Elf. Type of list, which were very shooty. We had some of them very shooty, but also ID, I put them towards the left. I think the star list of I wanted to put this year, basically the star list was towards range damage. Definitely a gun line is relying on range damage, so could have been all the way to the left. And here I wanted to put 2026 next year would be, in my opinion, generally speaking, much more combat oriented, so much more balanced in terms of what it does, mixed arm feeling. To be honest, that's the perfect definition for me for what's going to happen this year. It's mixed arm type of list with a little bit of shooting, but as well more combat and more dynamic scoring unit, especially for the needs of primary objective under season pack 2. Okay, let's go towards the slot. I've been trying to like define some categories which you have in your list and what I would consider as a viable option or new options. So in the master category, in the magic category, we have obviously the old build, which is Master Pyro of Alchemy. It's still very decent. We saw Alchemy has some nice buff. Pyro, I think, is not weaker than before. I think Tidal Flame is quite good. So I think this master works. Occultism is very short range, and you have the need for a sacrifice, and I think works only on mounted version most likely. We could the old combo with the Bastion and be hidden behind could work. It's a big, I think it's a big question mark around the Bastion and the way the meta will adapt. If meta-wise we could fit it, we could potentially see back this iconic unit with the Bastion and the Mage on the seat, which receive a discount behind it, or then a mounted Master with Occultism is also viable. And I think what I like about Occultism is the balance between the buffs and the range damage, which is, I think, better than Pyro of Alchemy. I think it's the issue of this single Master is for Alchemy, you will obviously get a lot of time dispelled for the +2 armor save if it has a huge impact, and then you end up with a +1 armor save, which is a +1 to hit, and AP, which is already very good, but it's not as impactful as +2 armor save. And with the Pyro Master, I played it enough this year to see that in terms of buff, it's also very limited what you can provide, but it can work also for the combat, but it's a bit more limited. I would expect Occultist to be more all around with the -1. In the weapon skill, you have the ward save buff, which is basically an equivalent from the +2 armor save, more or less, for a cheaper price. So yeah, you have some good spell in the Occultist to make it more all around. And when you think mix arm, you also maybe think a bit more about combat buff, because that's something we've been okay to lack when you play the type of gunline list with Immortal, very resilient. You didn't need that much combat buff basically to make it work, and therefore we focus mainly on range damage. But maybe this year with the new season pack we might want or need to have a bit more combat buff, and therefore we could see here a change. But basically Master is still a decent option with all 3 paths. I think there is nothing that is out of the table basically. I mentioned before Conjurer or also Prophet Adept. I think Prophet Adept on Chariot, on Small Bull are definitely playable. Plus the Lamassu, I think the combination of an Adept and the Lamassu basically alone is providing the perfect magic phase you want in terms of buff. You have the ward save, you have the +1 to hit, and you have the breast weapon, and you also have hereditary. So I don't like the Witchcraft, obviously, which I think we won't use that much, but I think the other spells are very good, and all of them are useful in combat. So I think the Lamassu alone is providing you a very nice toolkit, and a very nice set of spell that is going to be sufficient to make sure that you have some good spell for close combat. And then what you might want to have to make the magic phase more all around would be range damage. So here obviously for me the go-to pass to add some range damage would be Pyro, because then you Conjurer, you can go with Flaming Sword, Fireball, and Pyro Flow, and have some 3 very interesting range damage spell. So that could be a very nice combo in my opinion. I've also mentioned here the Legendary Lamassu. We don't have now the new points and new design for the Season Pack 2, but I mean you saw, as I did, the change to Witchcraft. And Witchcraft is exciting. It's very exciting to try. I'm excited to try it out. I think it has great potential. It's very specific, has a lot of flavor, and yeah, I mean, is it going to be working on a very competitive level? I'm not sure, but could be worth a try, because if you think about it, the main weakness of the engine is actually his now under the current rule set would be War Machines, because as I mentioned Magic before, it's not as scary as it was. For the Infernal Engine, it has definitely become better, and therefore I would say it's War Machine. And in terms of countering War Machines or limiting the issue, limiting the sensitivity to shooting and War Machines in general, I mean Witchcraft is the best you can get. You have the no line of sight higher than 12, you have the magical move and hard target. I mean, you have plenty of tools to limit what the opponent could do. And I also really like, you have also random movement. I also really like the fact that with this guy, you have a frontal Witchcraft mage. In terms of, you have a mage Witchcraft that can be on the front line. Not the same as the Conjurer, which has to be in a bunker, and therefore it's hard to take advantage from illusory pass. In that case, with the Lamassu, I mean, you can take advantage from all those spells. And yeah, I mean, if you see the pass, the way it works now, I think you have a decent setup with him alone. So if the decrease in price is enough, it could be an option. It could be an option. I will be obviously following that with great interest since the rework of Witchcraft. The core setup, I think, should stay very stable to what we saw this year. So I played a lot the 100 Vassal. Obviously, I think it received some discount, which is great news. I mentioned Oil Flask before. If we have the redesign, like I think it will be still a very good option in core. We had the 220-ish blunderbuss. It's still pretty much the same. I mean, you saw the price. It shifted a little bit, but it's pretty much the same. And I think Citadel Guard as well, with spear and pistol, and you can put a gun with him inside. I think it's very decent replacement from the Immortals. It's not as good as the Immortal, obviously, but I mean, it's decent replacement. And you have a unit that's going to take advantage with gun team a bit longer than Immortal from Press by the Ranks. So I could still see this unit very much. It's in core, so the increase in price is not hitting as hard as in other category, because you still have to fill your core. So you can still fill your 20-ish Citadel Guard with pistol, spear, and banner of the Twice Branded with a gunnery team. That could still work out. So I think those were all the core setup that we saw this year, basically. If we have a comeback from the Bastion, it could shake things up. And then you have a mix between Vassal Levies and Blunder, which could be something that we could see. Basically, you bring a big unit of Vassal and you bring a unit of Blunderbuss. So those kind of setup could also work. So I'm really looking forward, but I think it should remain pretty stable. I don't expect the changes to help us bring big unit of Citadel Guard with just a shield, or big unit of Infernal Warrior with great weapon, all that kind of stuff. I don't expect it to come more on the board due to the change in price. They make an attempt, but I think the best options are still the best options. And like I said before, in core you don't mind too much about the nerfs. Shooting wise, the standard this year was maxing the War Machine, going towards 4 War Machine, and I think we might go a bit backwards here towards maybe 2 up to 3 War Machines maybe. Definitely here thinking Rocket Battery is still a great tool. You got a lot of decrease on monsters, so you might be happy to keep your rocket on the table. The best version of them is obviously the Infernal Artillery that is still accurate. So I think this one will be the prime choice. It has been more expensive, so we are close to 300, which is an expensive price, but I think it's still very nice, and I will probably keep it in my list. I know it's sensitive, it's a big price, it's sensitive to range damage, to ambush and so on, but I still think it's pretty nice. And then you have the NAFTA. I think NAFTA was very useful this year due to a lot of army fielding a lot of infantry. So we still have the option of Infernal Artillery, we have the option on Infernal Engine, and we have also the option still viable on Gunnery Team because it receives only plus 10 points. So I think Gunnery Team NAFTA are still very good actually to target opponents' infantry. For example, you take the Discord setup, Citadel Guard Spear, 20-ish, Gunnery Team NAFTA inside the unit, and then a rocket nearby. I mean, it's still very good range damage phase, and the increase in price is not that impactful if you consider all of that together. Dynamic scoring, I mentioned that before, it will be important this year. I think Anointed here are the key option because they receive a nice decrease in price. So I would expect unit of 3 to be totally viable because it's around 300 points or even less for scoring. Yeah, I think with paired weapon and standard it's 302. Very decent price for a dynamic scoring unit that can play on the flank. Here's also the cheaper alternative of 5 Token Forcer. We have the bigger unit of Anointed, which is also definitely worth it. So we might see all type of size of Token Anointed. We saw towards the end of the summer also being more popular the unit of 20-ish Lugars because they are very dynamic. They can be, they are very independent basically. You buy them a Banner of Courage and then you have Great Weapon Lugar that can be quite dynamic due to the March 12 total, and they can work pretty well on their own due to the magical resistance, and then they have a good number of high strength attack. So that could still be an option. So I think around those options in special, we have to use them. Due to Season Pack 2, you have to have at least 2 of those units in your list. So you can double up the Anointed, you can double up the Enforcers, you have multiple options, but I think you will need at least those two of those in your special category to have dynamic scoring unit and play decently primary. Hammer unit, Incarnate Anointed I mentioned before. My go-to version of Incarnate would be 4 probably. For 345, I think it's a good price and you can max out the grind. I like this version of them. Anointed, I mentioned before, I think all type of unit size are decent. And the Commissioner BSB is also back. You can have this fighty BSB that I like a lot in the past. Good discount, so you could definitely get him back on the table with different build and have a nice Commissioner BSB. Can also use the Bodyguard of Anointed and have a bit more armor unit, a bit more active playstyle. I like a lot that unit in the past, so I'm happy to see those discounts on these guys. And finally, Instrument of Destruction. Yeah, I think I mentioned Kadims. For me, they are not so interesting. I think the Giant is also a bit out of the picture. I like a lot the Infernal Engine in the current meta. I think it could be worth it. And the Small Bulls could be back. If we field Anointed again, we have then an option to protect our Small Bull. So I think Prophet on Small Bull is an option. Overlord or Vizier, I don't know. Vizier BSB on Small Bull is still quite cheap. So if you have a way to protect him with Anointed against range damage, that could be worth it. So we could see them again back in the list. So guys, that's all I wanted to share with you. A couple of early IDs. As you can see, what I like a lot, they have been able to shaken the book completely. And that was very important because the book was really working around one type of list, which is infantry only. And we might get something a bit more close to the idea of Infernal Dwarves that we have, which is a mix between dwarves, some slaves or vassals, and then some monstrous units in all type of forms. Can have monstrous infantry, monstrous cavalry, so to say, or big monsters. I think my main regret was maybe the lack of help brought for the Kadim Titan. I think it could have deserved a bit more to be more interesting. And to be honest, I think to be honest, even without all that decrease, the small decrease on the tank, I would have liked to have a further decrease on the Titan. I think it would have made more sense, to be honest, in my opinion, because I think overall the tank was already buffed just from the change in magic and what I'm expecting from the meta. But again, everything that is all coming out from my head, so maybe I'm going to be wrong. We will see. But I would have liked something more for the Titan. I think it's still not worth it, but we will see. Guys, that's all for this video. I hope you liked it. It's a bit brainstorming, sharing ideas. Really eager to hear your thoughts, you Infernal Dwarves player or also opponent, what you think. What are you expecting? Are you happy with the fact that the gun line is dead? I think all of us are happy because it wasn't the most enjoyable playstyle at the table. So I'm really eager to see the type of list we can build. I think we have plenty of decent options. That's the first reaction for me after the release of the update is we have plenty of viable options. So definitely a huge improvement for the internal balance, which to be honest was first necessary and secondly not so hard to do in terms of it was really easy to spot the problematic units list, nerf them and buff the rest, and I think this has been done. Anyway guys, enough talking for myself. I hope you liked it. Don't hesitate to share, comments, like, and talk to you soon on the channel. Goodbye.